A deadly cold snap can kill you in under 3 hours if you're not prepared. Temperatures that seem survivable at sunset become lethal by midnight. The difference between living and dying often comes down to what you did before the cold arrived. Yet homeless people who survive winter after winter seem to know when dangerous nights are coming before anyone else does. They're not checking weather apps or watching forecasts or listening to emergency alerts. They're reading signals that most people walk right past without noticing. What do they know about predicting weather that meteorologists with million-dollar equipment don't? Here's the thing about weather apps and homeless survival. They're almost useless. Not because they're inaccurate, because they're too late. By the time your phone sends a cold weather alert, shelters are already filling up. By the time the news mentions dangerous wind chill, the best sleeping spots are taken. By the time everyone else knows what's coming, the preparation window has closed. Veterans on the streets figured out decades ago that survival depends on knowing first. 24 hours of lead time means the difference between finding safe shelter and fighting for scraps when everyone else panics. The first signal is birds. Sounds ridiculous until you understand the science. Birds have hollow bones that make them extremely sensitive to barometric pressure changes. When a cold front approaches, air pressure drops hours before temperature does. Birds feel this shift and change their behavior dramatically. They feed more aggressively, trying to build fat reserves before the storm hits. They fly lower to the ground where air pressure is slightly higher. They go quiet and disappear into sheltered roosts earlier than usual. My grandfather used to say, when the birds stop singing, the sky starts thinking. He was a farmer who never owned a barometer, but never got caught by surprise either. Veterans watch specific bird behaviors that predict not just cold, but dangerous cold. Pigeons clustering unusually tight together. Sparrows feeding frantically at midday instead of morning and evening. Crows gathering in larger groups than normal and making more noise. Seagulls moving inland from coastal areas. Each behavior signals something different. Frantic feeding means a storm within 24 hours. Clustering means temperatures will drop severely. Inland movement means the system is large and serious. Pretty clever early warning network for people without smartphones, right? But birds only get you halfway there. Here's where things get interesting. Your own body is a weather prediction instrument. Joint pain increases 12 to 24 hours before major pressure drops. Old injuries ache. Arthritis flares. Headaches appear from nowhere. This isn't superstition. It's physics. Lower barometric pressure allows tissues to expand slightly, putting pressure on nerves and sensitive structures. People with old fractures, surgical scars, or chronic joint issues become human barometers. Veterans with war injuries or years of street damage report feeling cold fronts in their knees and shoulders before any forecast mentions them. Here's the thing about body signals though. You have to learn your own patterns. One guy might feel approaching cold in his left ankle that broke 15 years ago. Another might get a specific type of headache that only happens before pressure drops. The veterans who survive longest are the ones who paid attention to these signals over years and learned to trust them. I learned this the hard way, ignoring a weird ache in my wrist before a camping trip. Dismissed it as nothing. Woke up to a blizzard that the forecast completely missed. My body knew. I didn't listen. Speaking of pressure changes, here's a technique that costs nothing and predicts weather with surprising accuracy. Smoke behavior. Veterans who build small fires or who hang around burning barrels watch how smoke rises. In stable high-pressure conditions, smoke rises straight up and disperses quickly. When low pressure approaches, smoke hangs low, spreads horizontally, and lingers in the air. The more the smoke hugs the ground, the more severe incoming weather. Some veterans can estimate timing based on how dramatically smoke behavior changes hour by hour. My grandmother always said smoke knows where the wind's going before the wind does. She was talking about her wood stove, but the physics applies anywhere. Here's what nobody tells you about smell and weather prediction. Cold air holds less moisture than warm air. When a cold front approaches, the air dries out before the temperature drops. This dry air carries smells differently. Veterans report being able to smell things from further away when cold is coming. exhaust fumes from distant highways, food cooking blocks away, the earthy smell of the ground becoming more intense. The air itself seems sharper and cleaner. This change can happen 12 to 18 hours before temperature actually falls. Once you learn to recognize it, you never miss it again. Now here's where sound becomes a survival tool. Sound travels differently through cold, dense air than through warm air. When temperatures are about to drop severely, you can hear things from much further away than normal. Traffic noise from highways miles distant, train horns that usually fade before reaching you, airplanes that sound lower even though they're at normal altitude. Veterans call this the sound horizon expanding, when your normal sound environment suddenly includes noises you don't usually hear. Cold air is already moving in at higher altitudes and will reach ground level within hours. Here's the thing about clouds and timing. Most people look up and see clouds or no clouds. Veterans see specific formations that predict not just weather, but timing. Mare's tails, those wispy streaks high in the sky, mean a front is coming within 24 to 48 hours. A halo around the moon or sun means moisture is moving in and precipitation is likely within 24 hours. Clouds that lower and thicken throughout the day mean the system is arriving faster than expected. Clouds that build vertically in the afternoon mean unstable air and potential for rapid temperature swings after sunset. Reading clouds is a skill that takes months to develop but never fails once you learn it. But here's where the urban environment provides signals that nature does not. Cities have their own weather prediction infrastructure that nobody thinks of as weather prediction. Steam from manhole covers and subway grates changes behavior before cold snaps. On normal days, steam rises and dissipates. When severe cold is approaching, that steam becomes more visible, rises higher, and creates larger plumes. The temperature differential between underground heat and approaching cold air makes steam more dramatic hours before the cold actually arrives at street level. Veterans watch steam vents the way sailors watch the horizon. Speaking of urban signals, here's something genuinely clever. Frost patterns on cars and windows predict temperature trends. Light scattered frost means the night will be cold but manageable. Heavy frost that forms early and thick means temperatures are dropping faster than normal and will continue dropping. Frost on vertical surfaces like walls and signs means humidity is freezing out of the air rapidly, which indicates extreme cold approaching. No frost when you expect it means cloud cover is holding heat in and the night won't be as severe as forecast. Veterans check frost on parked cars before dawn to assess whether conditions are worsening or stabilizing. Here's the catch that trips up newcomers. Weather prediction only matters if you act on it. The 24-hour advantage means nothing if you don't use those hours to prepare. Veterans start their cold preparation ritual the moment they sense a dangerous night approaching. They scout backup shelter locations in case their primary spot becomes unavailable. They gather extra insulation materials like cardboard and plastic. They acquire calorie-dense food for metabolic heat generation. They connect with their survival network to coordinate group sleeping arrangements. They fill water bottles while taps still work easily. They charge phones if they have them. The prediction is worthless without the preparation that follows. Now here's where the human network becomes a weather system of its own. Street communities share weather intelligence constantly. Someone with a phone checks forecasts and spreads the word verbally. Someone with body aches reports what their joints are telling them. Someone who walked across the city shares what they felt in different neighborhoods. Information flows through social connections faster than any app can push notifications. Veterans, positioned at different locations across a city, create an informal sensor network. One person feels the wind shift on the waterfront and mentions it to someone heading downtown, who mentions it to someone near the highway, who tells everyone at the evening meal line. Pretty sophisticated information system for people supposedly disconnected from society, right? Here's the thing about shelter preparation once you know what's coming. The best spots fill up in predictable order. Heated parking garages go first, then building exhaust vent locations, then deep doorways with wind protection, then underpasses and bridge overhangs. Knowing 24 hours early means securing a position in that hierarchy before competition intensifies. Some veterans have 3 or 4 fallback locations already scouted. They rotate through them based on conditions and availability. The prediction gives them time to check each option while weather is still mild. Speaking of timing, here's what nobody tells you about the critical preparation window. Most dangerous cold arrives in stages. The front passes and temperatures drop moderately. Then clearing skies allow radiational cooling and temperatures plummet further. The most dangerous hours are often not during the storm, but the night after, when clouds clear and heat escapes rapidly into space. Veterans who predict accurately prepare for both stages. They know that surviving the initial cold doesn't mean surviving the night. The second wave catches people who thought they'd made it. Here's where animal behavior beyond birds becomes useful. Squirrels go into hoarding overdrive before severe cold, gathering and burying food with unusual urgency. Stray cats seek shelter earlier and in different locations than normal. Dogs become restless and clingy. Rats disappear from their usual surface locations, retreating deeper underground where temperatures are more stable. Each animal responds to different signals at different lead times. Veterans who pay attention to urban wildlife develop an instinct for when multiple species all change behavior simultaneously. That convergence means something serious is coming. My grandfather used to say, animals don't read forecasts, but they never get caught in storms. He raised livestock and learned to watch them for signals that saved his animals countless times. The same principle applies in cities. You just have to know which animals to watch and what their behavior means. Here's something else most people overlook completely. Plants respond to approaching cold in ways you can see if you know what to look for. Leaves on certain plants curl or droop before frost arrives. Clover folds its leaves closed when pressure drops. Pine cones open wider in dry air that precedes cold fronts and close tighter when moisture approaches. These signals are subtle but consistent. Veterans who spend time in parks and green spaces learn to read vegetation the way they read clouds. The plants can't lie about what's coming. Now here's where the medical reality gets uncomfortable. All this prediction ability means nothing if you're impaired when the signals arrive. Alcohol dulls pain perception, which means you miss the joint aches that predict pressure changes. Drugs alter sensory processing, which means you miss the smell and sound changes that warn of incoming cold. Mental health crises narrow attention, which means you miss the bird behavior and cloud formations that everyone else sees. The veterans who survive longest maintain enough baseline awareness to receive the signals the environment constantly sends. Impairment creates deadly blind spots exactly when perception matters most. Roughly, 1,300 Americans die from hypothermia every year. Many of them were caught by cold they didn't see coming. They had access to forecasts. They had phones and apps and emergency alerts, but they didn't prepare because they didn't believe conditions would become dangerous. Meanwhile, people without any of those resources survive night after night because they pay attention to signals that existed long before meteorology became a science. The street teaches lessons that comfortable living never requires. Here's the thing about long-term pattern recognition. Veterans develop a sense for dangerous weather that goes beyond any single signal. They feel it in ways they can't fully explain. Decades of paying attention to birds, smoke, joints, and sounds creates an intuition that fires before conscious analysis completes. They know a bad night is coming before they could tell you exactly why they know. This isn't mysticism, it's pattern recognition trained by survival pressure that comfortable people never experience. The brain learns what the body needs it to learn when the stakes are life and death. The social dimension matters here too. Experienced veterans warn newcomers when they sense danger approaching. They teach the signals over time through repetition and example. Look at the pigeons. Feel that ache in your shoulder. Notice how far away you can hear that train. The knowledge transfers person to person across generations of street survival. It's an oral tradition as old as humanity, preserved in communities that mainstream society pretends don't exist. So what have we learned? Predicting deadly cold before weather apps isn't about one signal. It's birds feeding frantically and flying low. It's joint pain and old injuries aching. It's smoke hugging the ground and smells traveling further. It's sounds reaching you from unusual distances and clouds telling stories in their shapes. It's steam plumes growing and frost patterns revealing temperature trends. It's squirrels hoarding and cats hiding and dogs getting restless. It's plants curling and networks sharing and veterans preparing while everyone else remains oblivious. These aren't just homeless hacks. They're the same observation techniques that humans used for thousands of years before meteorology existed, the same skills that indigenous peoples and farmers and sailors developed over generations, preserved by people who still need them because they can't afford to rely on technology that fails them. Weather apps are convenient, but signals are everywhere. You just have to learn to read them. Humans are remarkably perceptive when survival demands it, and frankly, that's pretty impressive.